Go live now. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Great to have you in our SAP User Group's YouTube stream. My name is Larissa Brinkman from the SAP Global User Groups organization, and I'm your host for today. I would like to welcome you today to our SAP community call on the topic External Workforce, a new way to get work done is made simpler. Before handing over to our speakers, let me share a few housekeeping rules. We kindly ask you to post your questions via live chat, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. The additional materials of this session, for example, the PDF, will be available under the same link in the description to the video of today's session shortly after the stream is finished. As you could see in the headline, this call is part of our new series entitled End-to-End Processes Deep Dives. This series were launched last week. The schedule of all calls under this series will be available on the SAP community page, and I will post the link to the schedule shortly in the chat. And now back to our speakers. Today we have Bharat Jendla, who is Director of Product Management at SAP Intelligent Enterprise Suite and External Workforce, and Mike Uhl, who is Senior Manager, Product Development at SAP Fieldglass. With this, I kindly ask Mike to take over and wish you great interaction. Mike?
Perfect. Thank you, Larissa. Thank you all for joining today. So Bharat and I are going to kind of walk through some of the end-to-end process that we have for external workforce. So we'll get right into it. As Larissa mentioned, there's an overall sort of program that's illustrating the end-to-end processes and how SAP sort of has put their products within those in order to produce an end-to-end integration suite. So the recruit to retire process overall is general, the onboarding, the planning, the staffing, the getting new resources into your organization, getting them to track their work, getting them, to travel, do what they need to do, and ultimately to get them paid. So what we're going to be talking about today is external workforce, which is a sub piece of that. So within your recruiting, obviously you have your hiring of your full-time employees and your travel that they need to do. And within that, you also have a life cycle of an external worker. And that's really where SAP Fieldglass can benefit the organization. So we're going to talk about how the end-to-end process looks like, show some demos of that, and also how it ties directly to other SAP products as well to sort of bring that harmonization together and show those pieces collectively working well as a whole. So the main three products we're going to talk about today are SAP Fieldglass, SAP S4 for the ERP for the payment, and then we're going to also talk about integrations we have with SuccessFactors on the personnel and HXM side of things. So So, and overall with SAP's integration plan, SAP has connected the end-to-end business process, you see on top, with the technical architecture foundation of the business technology platform, or BTP, at the bottom of that. So the core integration foundation that we have has built across all products with SAP a certain set of integration suite qualities that align things like the UX, so all the interfaces are looking the same security protocols are happening across the applications. There's things like unified approvals, so all those things can happen in one place. Ultimately, like aligning all of the content into sort of one suite of integrations that can be used. So all the APIs have been aligned. There's embedded analytics where information across different applications like SuccessFactors and Fieldglass can be seen so you can understand the spend of your employees, lots of things there. So, and to be concise, where the external workforce, it does sit in the middle. If you look in this sort of, this ecosystem solution, Fieldglass kind of sits in the middle between your human capital management, so where you're managing your personnel in products like SuccessFactors, and also your spend management. So getting those people paid, whether using S4 or some other procurement platforms. So I'll go through the end-to-end workflow and how that works, but that's sort of where the external workforce sits and how it fits into this end-to-end business process. And you'll see at the top, all of these processes kind of have these life cycles end to end. Today, focusing on the recruiting, the onboarding of those people and getting them paid. So, but ultimately, in the end, BTP gives us a really good foundation to integrate these artifacts across the platform. So, it's just a quick stat quote. The employees represent 58, so full-time employees represent 58% of the workforce, and it's up to 42% on average is going to external resources. So organizations as a whole, more and more need to track how much money they're spending on these resources, what they're actually doing, are they getting it done on time, and combining that with their full-time salary employees, right? So it's growing, pretty regularly year over year, and it's a way for people to execute their projects. So we're going to kind of go through that workflow and how I guess the Fieldglass application can tie into the SAP suite to help manage that workforce as a whole. All right, so here's a high-level business process, and you can see, like I was referring to, kind of SAP Fieldglass sitting in the middle here in red, with on top in green, we have the HXM system, SAP SuccessFactors, on managing your personnel. And on the bottom, we have the procurement system, which has S4HANA Cloud. We also have integrations with on-premise, but this kind of shows that payment procurement process sitting in that. And then in the middle, this is basically a standard operational workflow business process that sits within Fieldglass. So if we start this process, and Bharath, after this, is kind of going to go through some of these scenarios and show you a real live demo of this, so you can get a perspective and idea of what that looks like and how that works. But within SuccessFactors, a hiring manager can come in there, say, I need to hire a full-time employee, or they can say, okay, you know what, this is a short-term project for the next 6 months. I need to hire an external resource. So they can initiate that process directly within integrations that we have built embedded within SuccessFactors to initiate that request for that external resource. What that does is it lands in Fieldglass, allows them to create what we call a job posting, and ultimately it's a job listing that gets distributed to a set of suppliers that the buyer company will configure, and ultimately sending candidates in order to staff and fulfill this job request that they have. So while all this is happening, you can see the transparency. So a hiring manager can see in their org chart and the information on the positions themselves, sort of how this position is moving along, where it's at, and all the while they're reviewing candidates, they're looking to hire these people, and once they finally do find a candidate, it sort of initiates that onboarding process in Fieldglass. And when they initiate that onboarding process, really two things happen. One, obviously the workers agreeing to do the work, but they're also going to come in the organization, so all the onboarding tasks need to start, but they also need to manage that budget and ultimately make sure that the cost for these employees is accounted for. So we complete the sort of hiring cycle back to SuccessFactors to, once that employee is onboarded, initiates the onboarding process and also sees it in their org chart. So hiring manager can see they have 5 full-time employees and 3 contingent workers on their staff. They could see all of that in the org chart easily from an end-to-end perspective. And then while it's happening, when that work is agreed upon, we're basically solidifying requisitions and purchase orders to to basically solidify the budget that's going to cost for that 6-month project I was talking about. And this ties into, there's a best practice package, integration package we have with S4 and Fieldglass called the 22K package. And that basically uses all the purchase order, the purchase requisition, and service entry sheet and invoice, all these end-to-end order and invoicing processes, ultimately getting those people paid. And how this follows the life cycle, as you'll see here, the person will come in, they'll get approved for that PO, so make sure they have a budget. Once that released, that person is released to the organization, and they can go into Fieldglass and mark any time that they have worked, any deliveries that they have, depending on how the work that they're doing is being tracked within Fieldglass. They mark the completion of all those tasks. And once that completion happens, it will book, a service entry sheet to accrue that cost. And once that cost is accrued, the integrations will, decrease the budget on the PO. All those things sort of happen naturally, as you're used to seeing. But with these integrations, it happens pretty seamlessly to mark the service entry. And then once the costs are ready to be released to the supplier, actual invoices get generated. And there's a lot of features within S4 that benefit the customer too, that are tied with these integrations that help that cost visibility happen, and also help the supplier get paid in a timely manner, which Bharath will speak to in a few here. So that's kind of the end-to-end process. So just to wrap it all up, you have your recruiting up front, your onboarding with SuccessFactors, all of those pieces integrated. And then once the onboarding is fulfilled, we have these downstream, if you will, procurement tasks that are integrated between the S4 system in order to make sure all the deliveries and the costs of those employees are being accounted for. So from here, Bharath, I'm going to stop sharing and I will hand it off to you.
Thank you, Mike. Let me share my screen. All right. Thank you so much. So there is a lot of talk about end-to-end processes. Let me make it into full screen. Is because if you look at any businesses of any size, whether they're small, medium, or large, there is a need to be supporting an end-to-end business process. Here, we are seeing a view from the system perspective, but there are a lot more people involved, both internally and externally for an organization. For example, SAP Fieldglass is interacted by all your suppliers, all your external workers like the contractors, where they'll be submitting time. And whereas in S/4HANA, you have your main controls like budget controls and as well as financial controls. And as long as we are making this much robust, much more reliable, we are actually addressing the key business requirement, and that's where the integration is key. And it's only possible when we have an end-to-end business process view supported by a common master data or common data model. And so again, if you are a customer or a partner who are starting the implementation journey, certainly document your business process in end-to-end fashion, I'm sure which you might be doing, but also take advantage of the reference business process blueprints that are available in our SAP API Business Hub. So what I will do is I'll take a quick minute, go to so this is the api.sap.com. Here, generally, as you might know, here is where you will find the APIs, but it's actually much more than APIs you can find here. Here, for example, if you click on the tab Business Process, the end-to-end business process are documented here. For our session today, we are focusing on the external workforce. So I'm going to go to Recruit to Retire. And here you see external workforce for the cloud and the hybrid deployments. And if you go to the cloud deployments, here you see the master data flows as well as transaction data flows and additional information here. And especially on the transaction data flows, 1 second. you see what business objects are being exchanged between SAP Fieldglass and S/4HANA Cloud. And then also, if I go to the solution process, you will find a much more detailed process, how the position is happening and how the time management is happening across all these different applications. And these are fairly detailed. So they will be a reference documentation for you to jumpstart your implementation. And that could answer a lot of questions coming from whether it is IT departments as well as business users. So again, continuing the theme of end-to-end business process, I'm going to talk about at least 3 innovations where I will show you 2 demos on the end-to-end business process and the process innovation side. And then I'm going to spend a few minutes on the core foundation, how we call it as suite qualities, how we are bringing all these applications together on a common standards. So the first demo, again, it's a recorded demo. It will go at a much faster pace, but it will show you how SAP SuccessFactors, Fieldglass, and SAP S/4HANA Cloud come together in an end-to-end fashion. Like Mike mentioned earlier, the requisition can start in SuccessFactors, and it will automatically create a job posting in Fieldglass, reducing the manual effort and also bringing the process efficiency for your managers. So let's, without any delay, let's go back to the demo. Okay. All right, so let me put this in a full screen. So right now what you're looking at is the homepage of SAP SuccessFactors. Here a manager logs in, and if they go to their org chart, here they see their org chart here, and if you go to the position org chart, they will see which positions are open. Again, someone could be taking a long leave, then or you have a sudden surge of demand because of the business needs that you want to augment your current staff with contractors or contingents, in this case external workers. So you would you are in your SuccessFactors application in the position org chart as a manager, and you simply click on that position, and then from here, as you can see here, create a SAP Fieldglass requisition. You simply click on that, and it will create it will actually start a job posting in SAP Fieldglass automatically. The really nice thing about the integration is it actually defaults in a lot of the master data required. For example, all you have to do is put in some start date and end date, but the company code, the plans, the job codes, and most importantly, the job template, which since it already knows the position that you want to backfill a contractor, it already mapped to the job template. So it is easy for you to start the requisition process instead of starting from scratch. Again, this is all typically done in the project implementation configuration phase, but business users experience a lot of efficiency in the process. So again, this is a requisition. So having a cost object or a cost center is mandatory. Again, here job requisition has been created. And once it is created, it has to go through typical approval process. At the same time, in SuccessFactors, you will know what is the state of this requisition, because since you created it, you want to know where it is, that it is approved or rejected, where it is at. So right now it's pending for approval. Here I'm logging as the manager of the person who requested. Here I'm approving the job requisition, because without getting approval, it will actually will not be shared with the suppliers, your preferred suppliers in this case. So here it's approved. And at this point, the requisition will be sent to the suppliers, and they will provide resumes potentially, right? You're submitting a candidate. They can submit more than one candidate, obviously. And here They're just again creating submitting a candidature and their availability date. And remember, again, Fieldglass is a true network application where, again, buyers, suppliers, external workers are interacting with each other very seamlessly. And the suppliers can provide pay rate information. And when you're sending it to suppliers, you can also give them a range of also, right? So those controls are all in Fieldglass. So here for the job requisition, the candidate has been submitted. So again, at this point, as a hiring manager, you can make a decision whether to again hire or not. But in this case, it's a demo, so you're simply hiring them. And again, here, including the position ID and all that master data is automatically populated, so you don't have to fill this in. And you see, you wanted someone at $75 an hour, and then you got someone at 70. So you're making sure that they are assigned to the right cost center, everything, and then you are submitting. Again, at this point, the person is hired, and so the work order has been submitted, and it will be sent to S4 for the approvals. Again, at this point, the purchase requisition, purchase order will be created in S4 system. And meanwhile, you can also see what is happening in SAP Fieldglass, sorry, SAP SuccessFactors, that this has been submitted. And also you can see that the purchase requisition came back from S4, that the supplier, now the next step is supplier need to accept. Again, it's really an integrated business process. It may appear it's a lot of steps, but, and also remember, you are having a legal contracts with your suppliers, and you want to make sure that everything you do according to the rules and guidelines in the contract. So having these controls really necessary. Again, in this case, the worker has been accepted. So they, so this lets them actually onboard themselves. So still it is submitted status. So the reason we are switching back between these different systems is to show you the status, how transparently it is flowing. The purchase order information came back from SAP S/4HANA Cloud. And then here, the external worker is actually creating their own account. Again, it's only necessary once. If they have already an account, I'm pretty sure they can reuse it. So at this point, the external worker has onboarded, and they can even complete a timesheet. And they have been actually hired into the system. So this is how things work. And so that's just, I wanted to quickly show you that. So the scenario that we have seen so far is the front end of the piece, which is recruiting and order management, is what we have seen, where requisition can start in SuccessFactors, but also it can start in SAP Fieldglass. Again, our customers tend to create job postings as well as statement of works quite a bit, and manage through this. But the second part of the demo that I want to show you focuses on the later part of the process, where once an external worker onboarded, let's say they work for a week, they will submit their timesheet. Or when you onboard an SOW worker, statement of worker, they will check off certain tasks that they have completed, certain deliverables they have done. So all that information from SAP Fieldglass is sent to S/4HANA as in the form of service entry sheets. And here there's an innovation that's actually around for, again, a couple of decades, but now it brought to this integration is called ERS, Evaluated Receipt Settlement. It's also known as self-billing. So it will actually help you to do a faster and accurate close. So I'll tell you how this works. That innovation actually happens at the end. Remember, Fieldglass is the system of engagement for your suppliers, for the buyers, for the external workers. So the idea is actually fairly simple. When a timesheet is approved by a buyer, it's already there, ensuring that the proof of delivery already happened. So instead of waiting for the supplier to submit an invoice, the idea is that for the approved service entry sheet, the invoice gets generated in SAP S/4HANA Cloud automatically. And that invoice will be replicated back to Fieldglass. So there is actually almost like a step is eliminated from the service entry sheet to the invoice, again, resulting in not only again time savings, it leads to actually also prevention of invoice variances. You don't have to spend extra time doing the reconciliation process, whether the supplier invoice matches with the timesheet and is it part of the right PO. That three-way matching process that oftentimes manual could be entirely eliminated with the self-billing process. So the other advantage is, because in this case, the invoice is generated automatically, you can actually enforce the tax rules, tax management centrally. So that's the other advantage that we often see, where, again, when you have your tax controls within SAP S/4HANA Cloud. So yeah, again, most importantly, it eliminates non-value work and your suppliers get paid on time, again, which is fairly important for a better supplier relationships. So again, we see a lot of customers definitely interested in such features for process efficiency. So again, now let's see the demo here. So I'm going to log in as a an external worker here. So I'm going to complete a timesheet. So let's assume that I worked not 8 hours, certainly more than 8 hours. So I'm going to work, let's say this external worker, Mike, has worked 40 hours this week. I'm going to click submit this timesheet. Again, at this point, a timesheet has been created. It ends with 6592. And here I'm going to go back to Fieldglass as a buyer, manager. And here I can see that timesheet is pending for approval. And if you look at this, 840 hours and 2,400 is yet to be paid. So once I click approve, here there is a flag, ERS flag set to be true. Again, it is shown as information purposes, but it is actually inherited from the purchase order, and purchase order inherits from the supplier, that particular flag, which lets the system, in this case SAP S/4HANA Cloud, to create an invoice automatically for an approved service entry sheet. So here the timesheet is approved. At this point, this goes to SAP S/4HANA Cloud and a service entry sheet created. So I will go to SAP S/4HANA Cloud here, and then go to an app called Manage Service Entry Sheet app. And that's where you could see. There we go. So while this is coming up, again, it takes a little bit of while, but I can show you an existing example. It takes maybe a minute or two, but the idea is the timesheet comes in an approved state, and then automatically, if you look at this process flow for the service entry sheets, a goods receipt posted in SAP S/4HANA Cloud, but also invoice gets generated because there's actually a background job that looks for the service entry sheet and creates the invoices. Then it's a very simple process, but definitely brings a lot of value. It can also the the invoice gets replicated back to Fieldglass so that you can actually, it can be seen by the suppliers with the relevant details. The other thing I wanted to say is this particular flag is inherited from the supplier master data, so that you can enable self-billing with maybe certain suppliers, but for other suppliers, you can continue with the normal process. So again, this brings also a lot of flexibility to your business process. Again, moving on, again, we have seen so far 2 process-related innovations. One is the end-to-end business process, how we are bringing SuccessFactors, Fieldglass, and SAP S/4HANA Cloud together for an end-to-end business process. And we are also seeing the self-billing process. The last one I just wanted to mention briefly is the automatic accruals management. So this one is actually very relevant for public companies that are that trade in the stock exchange, because the biggest challenge is at a month end, at a quarter end, they really want to recognize the costs as well as revenues without any delays, because they want to be compliant with generally accepted accounting principle GAAP rules. And in order to do that, there are often semi-automatic or semi-manual ways of keeping track of the pending timesheets that are ready, that are submitted but yet to be approved, or pending deliverables that are yet to be approved. Those in the past used to be downloaded and submitted at the month and quarter at the year end. But the major process improvement that was done is whenever a timesheet or expense sheet is submitted by external worker, even if before it gets approved, it gets sent to SAP S/4HANA Cloud. It gets actually picked up by the accruals engine, and an accrual posting is done. And when an actual approval or reject happens on SAP Fieldglass, at that point, it will be the accrual will be backed out. Actual financial posting will be done. So again, this orchestration is also documented in our API Business Hub, but it's a really cool feature if you want to enable accruals for better accounting, and to also you will save time, because you don't have to do some sort of a semi-automated or a manual reconciliation at the month end, because this is happening almost in near real time as soon as any charge is posted in SAP Fieldglass. So those are the 3 process innovations that I really wanted to share here, and again, hope you find them useful. The other thing I want to talk to you about is suite qualities. Again, suite qualities, like Mike mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, that's the foundation on which we are building our integrations between various applications at SAP. And one of the core thing of that is the master data. And actually, if you look at for the integration of SAP S/4HANA Cloud and SAP Fieldglass, there's a lot of master data gets exchanged, whether it is company code, purchase order, plant, and all that master data also sometimes again needed in SAP SuccessFactors also. And having a different formatting, semantics, the meaning increases the integration complexity. So in order to reduce that, we for several years we invested in a concept called domain model alignment, which will align the common understanding of master data across all SAP applications. And also we have released a new service called SAP Master Data Integration Service that lets you to distribute master data across your landscape much easier. So I will take an example here. For example, a cost center is created in SAP S/4HANA Cloud. It gets replicated to SAP Master Data Integration Service. And from there, SAP Fieldglass as well as SuccessFactors will retrieve the information. And this is like a shift from our previous master data integration pattern. Earlier, it used to be, again, every application used to integrate with everything, but this is like a central hub approach where it actually literally reduces the number of connections that you have to establish because of the hub-based model. So again, something to really look if you are starting any greenfield implementation, and also in brownfield implementations, if you want to simplify your master data distribution across not only your applications, but also analytics and etc. So here is a diagram that is showing how the master data will flow through master data integration services, especially in a multiple application scenario. Cost center WBS elements gets replicated from SAP S/4HANA Cloud to business technology SAP Master Data Integration Service, and will be consumed by SuccessFactors as well as Fieldglass. Whereas employee master data, SuccessFactors is the system of record, so it gets sent from SuccessFactors to the Master Data Integration Service. For external workers, again, SAP Fieldglass is the de facto system of record. So it is the source where the information is sent from to Master Data Integration Service, and as applications like SAP S/4HANA Cloud and others can consume it from there. So, but any master data, the vision is any master data will be residing within SAP Master Data Integration Service for consumption by the consuming applications. So that also clarifies who is the provider, who is the consumer in this case, and who has the again lead in making the changes. Again, integration we have seen also tend to get complicated when multiple applications has to override the same information. So again, the other thing also was simplified in this process is the identity and access management. Here, this is also integrated with Master Data Integration Service for the worker information, and again, this is what is depicted here. So that being said, again, so I want to say thank you, and again, hope you find the session useful. If you have any questions, if you have any implementation questions, again, please feel free to reach out to us.
Perfect. Thanks, Bharat. And yeah, so a couple closing items. I think there's a lot of upcoming features and information that SAP has published about this information. So if you do want more information about SAP's integration strategy, there's a link here to the overall white paper, and that will get you to some of the highlights across all the different work streams and all the different features that are being rolled out within part of that. So it's a good resource on top of the architecture diagrams and some of those other deeper things on the implementation side that we showed earlier, but also from what's coming next feature perspective. There's a lot of good information on the white paper here. Next slide, bro. Yeah, and I get an additional piece for SAP community folks. There's a SAP integration strategy topic page. So a lot of good blog posts, information shared there on the things and experiences that people have had, or use cases that want to be demonstrated. So a secondary resource that's available there for any sort of integration topics that you want, and sort of in the blog form there and communicate on. So, but yeah. But overall, yeah, I guess, that's kind of in summation, how the external workforce ties within the SAP suite. We appreciate everybody taking their time and listen to us walk through this today. So at this point, I guess, Larissa, we can open it up for any questions that have come through the chat.
Right. First of all, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Bharat, for your presentation and demo. It's very useful, especially when you see the live demo, as then you get a better feeling of what's going on in the system. I can only encourage our audience to bring up questions in the chat. And as I can't see questions that arrived during this session, but while we are waiting, maybe I can ask the question that were brought up pretty often in other conversations. And this question is, what is the best Praxis integration package to connect SAP Fieldglass and S/4HANA.
Okay, yeah, I can take that. So if you look at the best practice, the Rapid site, it is a 22K package is published, and that shows kind of the use cases and everything. So the 22K covers the procurement aspects, all of the procurement end-to-end that Bharat demonstrated today. So you'll see the requisition, the PO, service entry, accruals, the invoice integration. It's all packaged within that piece itself. And you can also find more information on that on the API hub and the architecture diagrams that Bharat showed early on in the demo as well.
Right. It means the links to these resources are integrated in the PDF, right?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very good. So I can't see questions in the chat, but for those who will be watching the replay and bringing up questions later, please feel free to download the PDF. The contacts of our speakers are available there. Apart from that, the SAP community page with a focus on integration topics were brought up several times during this presentation, and I've also posted the link directly to the sub-community page for the convenience of our viewers and those who will watch the replay. With this, again, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Bharat, for being our speakers today. I would like to thank you, our audience, for being with us. Stay tuned on SAP community page. The schedule of the calls and the SAP end-to-end process deep dives will be published there. So, and we will be very much happy to welcome you in one of our upcoming sessions.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all, and have the rest of your day. Thank you. Take care.
With this, thank you and bye-bye.